through these characters, I've written the most autobiographical thing that I've ever written. And writing the lyrics was really easy. The only times for me that lyric writing is easy is when you're being honest.
Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin' Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
Eric, good to see you, man.
What is up?
You know, I was just thinking about this as before we got in the air. I don't think I've ever interviewed you before, have I?
I don't think you have. It's
We've
crazy too, man. We talk all the time. You know?
We've talked many times, that's right. But this is the first time. But I saw you were putting out your solo record, and I thought this is a good time, Zenny, to talk to you. So first of all, tell us about the album, I Had a Name. And I guess my first question or my first comment is does Shinedown afford you the ability to do a project like this?
Yeah, I think so, man. It allows me to kind of step outside of the norm and actually step outside of the Shinedown musical sphere, I guess is a better way of putting it. But they actually, I'm blessed enough to be in a band, and you know this about Shinedown. We would make the most boring reality show of all time because we all get along and we all love each other and hang out together. We all still ride the same bus. So they actually were like encouraging me to put it out. It's been done for a while actually, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to release it or not. It might sound strange to some people, and other people might completely understand this, but I made it strict. I made it for myself. I made it to see if I could do it. And I really love it a lot. And when it was finished, I just sat on it. I wasn't really sure I ever wanted to kind of put it out there, but my bandmates and my wife all threatened me with violence if I didn't do it. So here we are. It's one of those things, man, where it's there's no trouble in paradise. Like a lot of people. I've seen some comments the past couple of days. Does this mean you're leaving Shinedown, or is this, what's going on with the band? And it's like, nah, man. Like everything's great. I actually quite the opposite. Everyone in the band is just more than encouraging with this thing. So
yeah, I texted Barry and Brent and even John, your head of security, and all those guys are like, texted me right back. Ask him about this, ask him about that. We'll get to that coming up with you. So you said this has been done for a while. Like, what's a while?
I finished the last mix 2 days before Brent and I started writing Planet Zero, the album.
So what year are we talking about here?
20. I finished it in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's been done for a minute. I mean, there've been some mixed revisions, and I mean nothing drastic either. Like a remaster once, just for this time, before I was going to put it out, I had it remastered, and but yeah, man, it's just kind of been sitting in the computer. I mean, some people have had it. I mean, Brent's had it, and Barry and Zach, and a few close friends. I think Clint Lowry was one of the first people I sent it to. Ben Bruce, formerly of Asking Alexandria, sent it to him. Phil Demmel, sent it to him. But just a few people, and just I was just kind of like, hey, I made this thing. Check it out. So
while you're working on this, is there any ideas you think, well, I should save this for Shinedown? Hasn't been some of those, right?
Funny enough, the whole thing actually started. So I can give you like the I'll try to make this as abbreviated as possible. But when we were touring the first Europe tour on Attention, I was working out in a hotel room, and I just gotten done with the workout, and this voice that's not mine, which if anybody's ever experienced that, it's pretty wild. But it just said, you might want to write this down. And so I grabbed my journal where I write all my lyrics and anything else, and I started writing this story that is going to be a graphic novel that comes out in next year that coincides with this record. So I started writing the story down, and somewhere during that Attention album cycle, as I was writing this story, I started working on some music, and when I got done when I kind of dug into the music a bit, I remember going to Brent and I'm like, hey man, I got some stuff that's it's not like left field, but it's a little different, and didn't know if you were ready to start writing the next Shinedown record or not, and he said absolutely he was not ready to start writing the next Shinedown record. So I just started using the stuff for myself. The interesting thing about our band, about Shinedown, is that and I knock on a lot of wood when I say this, but the well's never really dry. It's like we our most successful Shinedown songs have come from scratch, just with an acoustic guitar in the room, the energy in the room. So having kind of pre-prepared tracks and ideas, it doesn't always really work for us as in Shinedown. So um, it wasn't like, oh, okay, well, I've got all these great things, and now there's going to be nothing for Shinedown or anything. I mean, like I said, I did this whole record, produced it, mixed it, played everything on it, sang it, wrote all the lyrics, and then immediately turned around and started writing Planet Zero. So, um, with help, of course, with Planet Zero,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, there was that moment of like, hey, I've got this cool stuff, any interest in writing right now? And we're very much in Shinedown, we're very much one of those machines that everyone has to be settled in and ready to be creative before we begin that process. So,
Now,
um,
now,
no
now,
harm, no foul.
right, exactly. Yeah. This record is a concept album, right?
Yep.
When did it start becoming a concept album? And from what I've read, it's somewhat autobiographical.
Yeah. So well, it was a concept record from the beginning because it goes
Okay.
with the graphic novel. So I was writing. I basically the album is chronological, but it's just sort of scenes from the story. So it's not really telling the whole story. I just took moments and bits and pieces, and interestingly enough, some of the songs when I started them, I was just sort of not really starting them with a scene in mind or a piece of the story in mind, and I would write in the song sort of a separate piece of the story, and that would be I was able to put those things into the actual graphic novel. So it was an interesting way of doing things. But yeah, man, I so it was just always conceptual for me. Um, from the get-go. And what was the other? Yeah, the
Was
other
it
part of the
was
question.
it was it always autobiographical or
Oh
did
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. So so what happens, man, is I get done with this record, and I'm not even done with it. I was probably two-thirds of the way through it, and I'm listening back to one of the songs in particular. It's a song called "Good Night, Good Night." It's fourth or fifth track on the record,
yeah, fifth track.
and yeah, and I was listening back to that track, and I had one of those moments, and I don't know if you've ever had this before, but when you have a realization or something dawns on you, and it kind of shoots ice through your veins, like you realize something. I was listening back to that track, and I had that moment of just ice through my veins, and I was like, you know, through these characters, I've written the most autobiographical thing that I've ever written, and it was, I thought it was interesting that writing the lyrics was really easy, and the only times for me that lyric writing is easy is when you're being honest. Like I can't formulate fictitious things, right? But that's kind of what this is. This is a fictitious world, and it's like, why is this so easy to write? And it's like, well, because I poured all these parts and pieces of myself, of my depression, my neurodivergence, all of these things that the good and the bad, my struggles with faith in the past, and you know, the song Good Night" in particular is about the fact that I was just I was a happy child, super happy, and then this depression creeps in as you get older, and so what happens to that kid who you used to be, and so it's sort of saying goodnight to that piece of you. So when all was said and done, a song like Mind Control, the character in that song is this character named Devar, and he's the bad guy in this world. He's our villain, and he 1000% represents that depression and that darkness, that confusion, that crept into my life. So I just thought it was really telling and very interesting that I end up writing one of the most personal things I've ever written, but I did it through these characters and story.
Yeah, you say that when you're growing up, and then all of a sudden you get a little bit older and depression starts creeping in. What is the trigger of that? Because like obviously I'm a person, I've been depressed, but I wouldn't say I've ever had depression. So
Yeah,
what triggered that for you?
man, it's I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what happened. You know, it didn't feel like it had been that I'd had it that long until my wife the other day reminded me, and she said, you were on antidepressants like the minute you got out of high school, pretty
Mm,
much. And I
wow.
was like, yeah, I guess you're right. I was. Um, and uh, I don't really know what caused it or what triggered it. Um, this any sort of business that you're passionate about, anything that you strive for. So the music business, trying to make it as an artist, that could have helped it along probably at some point. Uh, but it's interesting, man, the way it kind of ebbs and flows sometimes. Actually, making this record, I had a moment where I actually felt it happen. You can actually feel the depression kind of descend on me. I was listening back to some stuff and realized I was missing some pieces and parts that I thought I had, and for whatever reason that did it, man. That really triggered that kicked it in, and it was there for a long time. That was probably a good month of dealing with it. So um, there is no rhyme or reason to it. The one thing I have found though that helps mitigate it and keep it at bay as much as possible is just being busy. You
Mm,
know, like if I can stay back, I call it outrunning it. If I can just manage to stay busy with things that matter to me, whatever that is, it seems to, um, you know, it seems to want to kind of stay away whenever I'm running myself ragged. So
yeah. So you said that the record you were kind of finished with it, writing with it in 2020. So obviously 2020 was the pandemic. We've talked about
mhm.
this before about Planet Zero's kind of Shinedown's pandemic album.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much did that play into it, or was a lot of this stuff already finished before that?
Oh, this stuff was finished before Planet Zero. The interesting thing is, and I guess you and I've talked about this not on air, but uh, Planet Zero was the most unintentional concept record ever written.
Yeah.
It was we Attention was a story record slash concept record. I had just finished this concept record that I'm putting out now. I had no intention of writing a concept record. Neither did Brent, neither did Zach, neither did Barry. But honestly, what made that, and it's I guess it's kind of my fault. I mean, the subject matter is very cohesive for sure on that record, but I think the thing that kind of sealed it was I had these synthesizer interludes I wanted to put in, in between the songs and on Planet Zero, and at some point I was running out of time. I think we had to go have it mastered in 2 days or something. I had like 2 or 3 days before it had to go off for mastering, and um, you know, I told Brent, I was like, all right, I want to do these interludes. So I wrote all of those interludes on that record in 2 or 3 days. And but the voice, that voice we call Siren, the female voice that's in between the songs speaking, um, she just kind of came about. I just sort of I was doing one of those interludes and I just sort of heard this voice speaking. So I went into, started creating this character, and uh I think Brent was the only one that was here at the time. I let him hear the first one. He's like, cool, so I just finished it out like that. And when all that stuff got woven together, it became a concept record sort of unintentionally. So um I do have the news that the next Shinedown record is not a concept record though, for sure. 1,000%. It's just going to be a rock record, man. We're just gonna, it's not going to be conceptual. But I do think that you know a good part of I Had a Name, this record that I'm putting out now, there is some of its DNA in Planet Zero for sure. I mean, it's sort of uh, I just kind of because I just rolled from one end to the next,
Gotcha. Yeah.
sonically and uh, even maybe conceptually somewhat.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to listen to them both, like watching back-to-back movies or something.
Yeah, man. So yeah, listen to I Had a Name first and then Planet Zero because that would be how they were. That's how they were birthed. So.
Yeah. You just mentioned obviously the band. Barry said Barry wanted to know how you set the drums up, and he also said I'm super proud of him. Of course, you played all the instruments in here. So how do you figure that out? Do you watch Barry, or did you your own thing?
Yeah, well, so the drums are the only thing on the record that I won't say that I played. Like I'll say I played everything. I performed the drums. So I was uh I was in marching band for a lot of years in high school, and I played the quints, and my hands work really well. I got really good hands for drums. My feet don't do so hot. So um unless it's a slow song, slower track, stuff like that, I can get away with it. But I actually set the kick drum up on a stand. So I had the kick drum in front of me, and then the snare drum, and then a tom and a tom, and I played everything with my hands. So kick drum was this, just just kick, kick, snare like this, and then I do the fills and come back. And I just, I do it a section at a time, a piece at a time. I do a verse and a chorus, and then I pick it up and I do the next verse and a chorus like that. Uh, and then I went back and overdubbed cymbals over the top of it. I wanted to have my DNA and everything on this record. So, just having programmed drums throughout just didn't seem right to me. So, it took about a week and a half to track all the drums, and it was I'll tell you what it did for me as a producer, man. It made me realize how physically demanding playing a song on the drums is. And every time that I ask a drummer in the studio, okay, can you play that again? Can you play that again? Can you play that again? It really, Barry's super good like that anyway. We rarely do more than three or four takes of a song, three takes usually with Barry, but um, it really caused me to reassess what I asked drummers to do in the studio. But it was a cool way to do the drums, man. I think it definitely gives them their own vibe. Uh, they don't it it's they've definitely got their own sound because of that, and because of doing kick drum with basically with the left hand and snare drum with the right hand. And sometimes you'd have to kind of switch it up, just depending on how the pattern fell. But I used mallets for everything. So
Oh, is
even on
that?
the even on the snare drum, it's a mallet. So it definitely has its own vibe.
Yeah, my daughter's 23 and she was playing some stuff for me over the weekend, and I'm like, this is a good song, but I can hear the drums are totally fake. And it just bothered me a lot. It's like, really, you just can't hire a drummer. I mean,
Yeah, well, and this is not this is just a personal taste thing for me. It's not I'm not taking swings into the bands or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but that's one of my things, man. The records that I've loved, for years and years, most of them are, you know, late 90s, early 2000s records, and just back when the drums, every record the drum kit sounded different. It was like every drum kit had its own personality, and there's still records out there like that now. I mean, that's one thing I love about Mastodon. Their records always sound like that. It's like the drum kit lends such a personality to a record. And when you've just got these, when you go in the studio and you lay down your drum kit, and then the producer just takes pre-canned sounds and just puts them down, you know, on top of your other sounds, and the snare drum sounds ungodly big, like it's, stereo and then some, and it's just there's just something that doesn't, just for me personally, that doesn't it doesn't vibe with me too well. I have a hard time getting into it. So
Well, the snare sounded the same in every single song, and it sounded like, I don't know, like it was hitting the rim. I'm like, this, it was just
yeah.
all around. But hey, speaking of producers and stuff, and obviously you've produced a lot of stuff, but Brent, he wanted me to ask you about Doug McKean, obviously a
Yeah.
guy that you learned a lot from.
Yeah, man. Doug, we unfortunately lost Doug right after, well, I mean, probably 6 months after we finished Planet Zero. Doug was my mentor, the only in studio mentor I ever had. Let's put it that way. I'm basically self-taught, but we started working with Doug on Sound of Madness record was the first record with Doug, and then he did Sound of Madness. He did Amaryllis. He helped me with the engineering on Attention, Attention and Planet Zero.
Hmm.
Uh, and I mean, besides the fact that he engineered, you know, uh, Green Day's American Idiot and My Chemical Romance's Black Parade and countless Dave Matthews records and Talking Heads records, and just such a wealth of knowledge and just a fun guy to be around. But yeah, man, I learned so much from him, and it's really a shame because I feel like the Planet Zero record, I was wound up way more than I had been on any of the other records, like just really hard on myself, and I'll say I've been probably in a dark place the whole time we were making that record, and so I don't think he had necessarily as much fun with me on Planet Zero as we had on some of the other records, um and yeah, man, he sadly passed away suddenly, uh
Hmm.
you know and it was really, really tough on me, man, and tough on everybody, not just me. I mean, again, he had a wife and two kids, and um but you really, really know what a how special he was in the industry, that, all the people that were at his service, all the big names that were at his service, man. And but he taught me not to be too precious with things in the studio. That was one of my favorite lessons I got from him. A lot of times when you're making a record, it's like you get a mic set up. It's like, don't touch the mic, don't touch anything. Just that's right where it needs to be. It's in the perfect spot for. And Doug would just rip microphones down off of things, and he'd put them back up again. Nothing was precious, nothing was sacred. And he's like, well, we'll get great sounds again. Don't worry about it. And for what I learned was that that's what made his records interesting. That's what makes his record sound interesting is it's not the same drum sound on every song, because he's constantly moving things around and constantly tweaking things, and nothing's the same twice. And same with guitar tones, man. That guy got some of the best guitar tones I've ever heard on recordings. And again, there was no formula to it. I wasn't like, how do you get your guitar sounds? He's like, well, which one? Like it was, I do something different on every record. I do something different on every song. And he really taught me that that's what makes records interesting is you were talking about how everything sounds the same on a drum kit on a record or something. I call it band in a can,
Yeah.
sometimes, where it's just like all the guitars sound like all the other guitars, sound like all the other drums, sound like all the other basses. And uh and that's not to say, man, that I'm sitting here getting like the best tones in the world or something. That's not I wouldn't dare ever say that. Uh, but I definitely Doug taught me to strive for something interesting, or try to strive for things that are more interesting, I guess.
Mhm.
And but yeah, man, it's just such a huge loss. And now we're working on the next Shinedown record without him. And um, you know, Doug was world famous for his drum tones, man, his drum sounds. And uh, I decided that on this record that I'm just going to engineer it all myself, and um, rather than bring another engineer, and it just doesn't feel right, right
Oh,
now.
you're
So
talking about your record or the upcoming Shinedown
no,
album?
no, upcoming Shinedown record, yeah. Yeah, I engineered my record as well.
Okay,
So
yeah.
everything on my record as well. Yeah, but I'm talking next, Shinedown 8, the next Shinedown record. We've already uh, recorded and produced a couple of songs, well, a handful of songs already for it. So,
How far
but
you
just
think you are?
uh, half to two-thirds, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So we still have some writing left to do. We're doing this one a little bit differently, where we are kind of tracking as we go somewhat. So we'll get some stuff written, and then we'll track a few songs, and then we'll get some more stuff written and track a few songs. So usually we wait, until everything's compiled, and then we start tracking. But we decided to try it a little differently this time. I don't know if I'd do it again. It's a little difficult on the brain, but to switch gears from writing to producing back to writing, to for me, it's like I'm very process driven. So the process of writing for me in my brain is way different than the process of engineering and producing and that sort of thing. So I think that just for my own sanity, I would go back to the way we've done it in the past, I think, the next time. But that being said, it's going to make, again, a very interesting record, and we're super super excited about the next Shinedown record. But
And you said a
uh,
little while ago that it's a rock record. Obviously, everything you guys do is a rock record, but there's
mm.
been some crossover a little bit here and there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just kind of lump what we do into rock. I just there's never, like, I can't remember a time when our band ever had a conversation about, this is this style and that's that style, and this is this and that's that. It's like, for me, it's like if you think about, you know, Second Chance is a rock song, and Planet Zero is a rock song, and No Sleep Tonight is a rock song. And I know some of them, maybe will skew a little more mid-tempo or a little more metal or whatever. But um, I've never, and neither have any of the other guys in the band. We've never thought about it as anything other than just making rock music.
Okay. John, of course, I don't know, what is he? What is he besides your best friend? Is he like the head of
Yeah.
security?
Yeah, dude. Well, like that's the great thing about our outfit, man, is everybody's great friends. So
Yeah, no.
all the employees are great friends, and we all work. We say we all work with each other. Not, no one works for us; they work with us. So,
Yeah, but
so
John's
yeah.
a great guy. And of course, you've done many a podcast with
Well,
him.
and John's such a talented guy. His talents are beyond, his he was a Secret Service agent. That's how he got his start. And
Oh, no kid. I didn't know
uh
that.
yeah, and usually not all the time, but usually guys like that are very one-dimensional,
Mhm.
and John is not that. John's very
Right.
creative. He's a great writer, uh a great podcast host. If anybody's ever listened to Spear Talk, his podcast network, and he and I do Taco Tuesdays on the Spear
Yeah.
Talk network. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, he wanted me to ask you about unidentified UAPs, I guess, and of course the Phil Collins thing with the Alamo. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means.
Well, I didn't know this. Like, I think people might be sick to death of UAPs right now. That's because they're everywhere.
What does that stand
It's
for? Unidentified aerial phenomena?
phenomena.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. No, now it's unidentified anomalous phenomena is it's what they've changed it to, because it's because they're coming out of the water and everything else. Um, but the Phil Collins thing is interesting, man. We went to the Alamo. We had a day off there in San Antonio, and I'd never been. John had never been. We went to the Alamo, and uh, uh, there's just this massive collection, like Davy Crockett's rifles, and all of this memorabilia and crazy stuff. And then you get to the end of the tour. Anybody who's ever done it, and they kind of bring you into like this. It's like a diorama of the Alamo, and it kind of shows you what happened that day and over those days and how and when what went down. And but interesting enough, Phil Collins is narrating the whole thing, which is
Oh, no.
kind of odd, right? He's narrating but then you find out that Phil Collins is the largest private collection of Alamo memorabilia in the world. Like,
Mm,
it's like his thing. It's the thing that makes him tick.
no
Is
kidding. Oh.
Alamo history.
Was
So
there a plaque where Ozzy pissed?
yeah, I didn't see that actually. There should be though, for sure. But yeah, man, Phil Collins. Like, who would have thought that Phil Collins was like that's his hobby, is the Alamo and
Mhm.
Alamo history. So
Wow.
who knew?
And what's the collection of stuff you have of the most of?
Oh man, guitar pedals for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah.
Guitar pedals. I love guitar pedals. I have pedals that I've never plugged in. I'll buy something that sounds interesting, and then not plug it in with the purpose of when I get in a rut. Like, if I get in a rut, or I'm not, the riffs aren't coming, or I'm in a tonal rut. Like this sounds the same as everything else. I've got a box of guitar pedals, that some of which I've never even heard before, that I can grab. I don't know what this sounds like. I'll plug it in and just see what it does. And I love that discovery. So, and then I've got a ton of ones that I do use all the time too.
Mhm.
But guitars and guitar pedals for sure.
I like the what Satchel. He got his he got Satchel's what's it called, the panty dropper or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. I don't have that one yet though.
There you go. See,
Maybe that's what's missing.
Christmas
I'm not
Christmas
dropping
is
enough
coming.
panties.
Speaking of that, Brent wanted me to ask you about ripping your pants on stage in front of 80,000
Oh
people.
yeah. Yeah, man. I download festival, I don't know what year it was. But yeah, man, I don't wear underwear on stage or off stage, really. Too much information, but that's just what it is. Uh but yeah, man, I was up there in front of the full download crowd, the mass of people, and it was right at the end of the show, and I went to put my foot up on the sub, like this, just get my foot up there, and I just felt this draft, man, and I looked down, and it's just breezy. It's breezy, man. And I just happened to notice out of the corner of my eye, you can see the big screens, and it was like, oh, there's my dick on the big screen. And that kind of sucked. That was terrible. But then was made it even more awkward than that was that all the guys in Tesla were watching, like, side stage. And I'd never met those guys before. At the time, I'd never met them before. Barry knew them, I think, at the time. But I'm like, I'm a child of the '80s, man, '70s and '80s. So I'm like, I want to meet Tesla, but like I feel weird, like I had to put a towel like right here, and I'm trying to talk to these guys and meet them while it's like, they just got this towel shoved in my crotch. So
Yeah.
it made that a little awkward.
That's
But
so funny. Bruce Dickinson told me a kind of a similar story. Of course, he's like, and then my trousers ripped out.
yeah. Well, so ever since then, whatever pants I wear on stage have to have some stretch to them, like not spandex or anything, like, but like skateboard pants. I wear these RSQ skateboard pants now on stage a lot because they have some give to them.
That's
So I
hysterical.
feel like it's a little bit more of a little bit more protection against that happening again. But
Yeah. Spinal Tap moments for sure. Well, the Eric Bass presents the I Had a Name coming out February 28th, 12 tracks on it. Right now, Mind Controls the is the first single you just released yesterday as we record this. The video is kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of Pink Floyd meets like Rammstein or something.
cool, man.
It's,
Yeah,
it's from the video, not like the music per se, but that's kind of
yeah.
the vibe it gives off to me.
Yeah, man, like it was interesting. I played the character. I played Devarin in the video, which I have other people playing the other characters in the other videos, but I decided that I wanted to play him. It kind of felt right, to play the dark character, to play the darkness is something that I'm uh have an intimate relationship with. So and he's a complex character, man. You get to the end of the song and you hear him, and he's got this doubt in his mind about, he despises the populace that he is imprisoned basically. Uh, but at the end of the song, you find out that he's got this voice inside of him as well. That's he's conflicted. These moments of wondering why he does what he does, and that he wishes he could kind of start all over again. So I love complex characters, especially complex villains. So uh, I had a really good time playing that character. And yeah, man, he's like he's our he's like this little dictator, man. So it was fun to do.
Well, I look forward to checking out, of course, on vinyl as always, February 28th coming out. And good luck with everything this year. I guess for Christmas, I'll get you a satchel. Let's see, a satchel
Yeah,
foot
yeah.
pedal.
Write that down. Write that down. There'll be if you get me that, there'll be lots of penny dropping on the new Shinedown record.
By the way, as we record this today, you guys just were announced for Welcome to Rockville. So that's really cool.
Yep.
Man. Guys
Yeah,
got
man.
2025 is already shaping up to be a good year for Shinedown.
It's gonna be a big year, man, all the way around. So we're excited. I had a name coming out, and then the new Shinedown record will be out sometime in 25, and lots of touring on Shinedown stuff. So uh, ready to go, man, locked and loaded.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Oh, Don Jameson just texted me. We always text back and forth memes, mostly
Yeah.
political ones. Um, hey, real fast, since you got a pretty good connection there, can I just get a quick ID?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, just say that, Eric from Shinedown, listen to Meltdown, WRIF, whatever you want to
Yeah.
say.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Eric Bass from the band Shinedown, and you were listening to my boy Meltdown on WRIF.
All right, works for me. You all good with all that?
Dude, I'm great with that, man. Thank you. Appreciate the time, brother.
For sure, dude. I saw that yesterday, and I'm like, we've never interviewed, done an interview
Yeah.
before, so I'm like, okay, this should be interesting. But
Yeah,
yeah,
man. I'm excited. I'm excited for the whole thing to come out, man. It's different, man. It's got some moments of it's a little bit um genre bending a bit, so but all in all, again, man, it's a rock record. I just call it a rock opera. It's it's got a lot of the stuff that makes me tick in it, so that's what I love about it.
well, hey, that's what it's all about, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
All
it,
right.
man.
Well, listen, dude, I got a blast. I got to get out of here, but I really do appreciate your time, man.
Hey,
And
thank you for your time, man. Seriously, thank you. I always appreciate it, man. And anytime you got my number. Anytime you need anything, text me.